Hi, I'm Simon. Thanks for tuning into The Ordinary Filmmaker. If you're new here, subscribe to get notification of new videos like this one so you don't miss any news, rumors, tutorials. And by the way, I'm giving away a brand new Canon EOS R5 full-frame mirrorless camera to one lucky viewer. Details are in the description down below, or you can watch this video here, but essentially all you have to do for your chance to win, subscribe to my channel. That's it. No jumping through hoops. Now, I do recommend watching the video and reading the terms and conditions of that video in the description because there are certain locations due to local laws and restrictions on age. Before I get into this week's questions and answers, let's do a recap of the week's news. Now, not a lot really happened this week. Yeah, that does sound stupid. A lot did happen this week, but I only cover off camera stuff. I don't get into politics. So let's talk about the few noticeable announcements we did get. Canon announced the RF 50mm f1.8 pancake lens, and the price, $199. That's less than many of us had thought. Now, it is a good solid lens with better optics than the EF version, but, and this is the big thing here, it has 7 stops of stabilization when paired with a Canon R5 or R6. That's a significant upgrade over the EF 50mm, more than making up for the price jump. Canon also dropped or announced the f4 version of the RF 70-200mm. It has 7.5 stops of stabilization, again, when paired with the Canon R6 or R5. The 2.8, well, it costs $26.99. The f4, $15.99, and that's less than many of us anticipated. More interesting news comes from Sony rumors. They say that the Sony A9 Mark III will be out before the Olympics and announced in January at CES. It's going to have 8K video. Now that's a headliner, but in terms of photo and video specifications, yeah, there really wasn't any. Now if the rumor holds true, it's not going to be long before we know more. And now for the main event. I've got 18 questions this week. If you'd like your question answered on The Ordinary Filmmaker question and answer video, post your questions in the comments section down below. I also post a weekly poll asking for your questions, and I usually do that on Wednesday or Thursday. Our first question is from Mohammed. Mohammed asks, would you consider the R6 as a filmmaking alternative to the R5? Mohammed, I actually already did consider the R6. Just before I made the decision to purchase the R5, I looked at the R6, I looked at the video modes, and what really kind of held me off was the overheat modes. I need 4K 30, and I want to be able to shoot 4K 30 without having to worry about interruptions. Yes, we do have to worry about that 30-minute record limit, which is just a ridiculous thing. But overheat limits, that was just something else I didn't want to have to deal with. And of course, back then we were hearing about, didn't seem to matter what temperature it was, whether you put it in the fridge or not. You had to wait quite a while for it to recover. So I thought, well, the R5 is better for me because I can shoot unlimited in 4K 30. And that's really important for doing my YouTube stuff. For personal run and gun stuff, I wasn't so worried about it. But if I was shooting a lot of pictures and I was in a hot climate and I wanted to shoot video, I didn't want the camera telling me I only had 5 or 10 minutes. I didn't like that at all. I wasn't happy with how it was crippled. I really wish Canon would have added more magnesium, better heat dissipation for the R6. If the R6 had 4K 30 without overheat, I might very well have gotten it. But the R5 gives me 4K 30 without overheating, and 4K HQ is what I shoot in a good 95% of the time, and it is stunning. It really is amazing. But yeah, there is a huge price difference, and even the R6 at $24.99 isn't cheap, but $38.99, that is painful. Fortunately, because you're watching my channel, because many others are watching my channel, I was able to afford the R5. And so I thought I'd put my best foot forward and get this camera, and the plans are to get the A7S III as well, but sadly, earnings have trickled down a little bit, so I'm probably not going to get that until the first quarter of 2021. But really good question. Srishan says, Canon's been naming their hybrid mirrorless cameras starting with an R. Was this a good move by Canon, as Yamaha, the leading motorcycle company, has been naming their motorcycles after R for decades? I know this sounds silly, but when one searches for R6 or R1, they get results of a motorcycle. Srijan, I really just think the whole naming structure for cameras is just utterly ludicrous. R5, S5, Z5, A5. I mean, come on. If you don't know much about cameras, you're hard-pressed to know which company came out with which, let alone whether it's a motorcycle. I really wish camera companies would take a page out of car companies. You think cameras are complicated? Well, if you really think about it, cars are some of the most complicated machines in our daily lives. A transmission, for example, has a minimum of 350 moving parts, but they have great names. The Toyota RAV4, the Toyota Camry, the Ford F-150. Okay, not really a good example there because it's kind of like got a camera name. But even if you've got a really fancy car and you want to come out with something special like the Herrera or some other name, they're easier to figure out. And even, let's go back to that Ford 150. There's no Ford 150 Mark II, Mark III. It's, what Ford 150 do you have? Oh, I have the 2019. It's easy, it's simple, it rolls off the tongue. The R5, the R5 Mark I, the 1DX Mark III, the Z5, Z6, R1. To me, it's very technical, a techno-babble kind of naming convention. It's great for engineers, it's great for, listing of products, but it's not really great for people. What could be a better name for the Canon R1? I don't know. I mean, look at the name of the company, Canon. What a great name. I mean, visualize that. It shoots. It's a powerful shooter, right? Canon is great. And then you have something like an R1. Couldn't you come out with something a little bit better? And I don't know, what would you guys think? Let's have fun with this in the comment section down below. Tell me what would be some of your favorite names for some of your favorite cameras. What would you call the Canon R5 or the Canon R1 or even the Canon 90D? Let me know in the comment section down below. Christopher says, I ordered my Canon R5 from Adorama in late September and still haven't got my camera. Any idea how long the R5 will be on back order? Maybe it will be in stock by the time they release the R1. Maybe. Now, what I recommend, Christopher, the Village Mayor had the same problem a couple of months ago. And what I suggested he do is talk to the company Downtown Camera, talk to Patrick at Downtown Camera. Now, this is in Canada, but just bear with me for a minute. And I said, you know what, give Patrick a call because he was on a list with another company and they said to him, yeah, sorry, we're giving it to our preferred customers first, which was interesting because when he went on the list, they didn't mention that. And sure enough, he got his camera pretty quickly. So what I suggest is reaching out to many different companies, maybe some local companies if you have any in your town or city, and see if you can't get it a little sooner. Waiting with one company, end of September, there's a huge demand for the R5, and if you had have ordered it in July, then yeah, it might be pretty imminent. Canon is fulfilling orders. They're producing a lot of the R5. It's helped them increase their numbers for the fiscal year, and they're expecting to sell an additional 500,000 units based on the R5 and R6 results. So Canon is getting these out the door. There's no way I can say, yeah, you might get it by December, but if you want to increase your chances of getting it sooner, then reach out to some of these other companies, especially local camera companies, because they're having a tough time competing with these larger chains like B&H or Amazon, and they'd be more than happy to get your business. And you know what, Christopher, I wouldn't be surprised if you were able to knock maybe even $100 off or have them throw something in, because it has been happening with some smaller chains. So that would be my approach. Stop the FOMO asks, with huge jumps in processing speed by the next generation processors from both NVIDIA and AMD, would these improvements tempt you to leave your iMac for a PC? Well, the PC I've got now, the iMac, I tend to think of all computers as PCs. They're personal computers. It's not so much about the raw specs. I always talk about capabilities. But the real reason why I wouldn't jump to a Windows-based machine or a Linux-based machine is not specifications or even capabilities. It's software. And I've heard this for decades. I've been in computers for 40-odd years, and the one thing that generally keeps you to a system is software. And I've got project files going back to 2013 in Final Cut. And I wouldn't be able to convert those. Yes, I could keep using Final Cut and, keep that license up. But I don't want to have to deal with that hassle. I like the fact that I'm familiar with Final Cut, that all my files are in Final Cut. What it will take for me to move off of Mac to something else is Apple really screwing up. Apple really hindering the customer experience. Now, Apple has already chiseled one block out, and that's with their incessant need to solder everything onto a single board. RAM. Now, RAM wasn't so bad because, okay, you know what, to spend an extra couple of $100 or so on bumping up the RAM to 64 gigabytes, I can swallow that. But when it comes to soldering my storage, my solid state storage, my SSD onto the circuit board, that's where I have a problem. And that's why I bought the iMac Pro, because no, I can't remove the storage there either. But at least with the iMac Pro, I can change out the RAM and I can change out the processor, so giving me a little bit more time with it. But if Apple does something with Final Cut to ruin the user experience, if the operating system becomes unstable, then yeah, I'm likely to bolt to a Linux machine, not a Windows machine. I'll probably go to DaVinci Resolve and I'll put it on a Linux box, because from what I've heard, a lot of pros, that's what they use. They find that Linux to be powerful. Again, you've got that same sort of advantage the Mac has over process threading and page handling that Windows still doesn't do very well in. Linux also does well in, and that's what I think I would do. Now, for me, I have to look at what my vision is, what my capabilities are, and yes, the YouTube channel is probably the most demanding, and that's where I need to record longer videos. I need to convert to Apple ProRes and all that sort of stuff, and really, if I really want to improve my workflow, get the biggest bang for the buck, then this Ninja 5 that I'm currently demonstrating or testing for review, that's probably something I would get, because what that will automatically do is give me files that are in ProRes. There's no transfer. I save myself a lot of time, and I only have to spend about $1,200 US. I know you can get them for $599, but that's just with the unit. $1,200 will give me 2 batteries, because I don't have any batteries. It'll give me an SSD caddy, and I don't have any spare SSD caddies. It'll also give me a 1 terabyte Angelbird SSD, one designed to fit without sticking out. Now, if you have a studio, which you do, and you have a lot of these batteries and parts, then yeah, you can get it for $599. But I think that, to me, saves the problem of me having to migrate to a completely different system, have a new learning curve, learn new software. So right now, I'm sticking with the iMac. I'm sticking with the Apple ecosystem. Chase asks, will the Canon Rebel T8, the successor to the Canon Rebel T7 budget camera, come out in 2021, and do you know anything about it? I'm asking this because I will save for my first camera, and I hope the T8 is real. Well, Chase, I don't know what region you are in, but in North America, in Canada and the United States, the Canon T8i is available for sale. You can actually go out and purchase it. I just checked on B&H. It was slow to come out to the market, so maybe that's what you're thinking, or maybe depending on what region you're in, you don't have it yet due to supply cuts, but it is out there. And I think that the T8 is an incredible camera. If I was looking at a hybrid camera and I wanted photo and video, and I really didn't have a lot of money to spend, I had a tight budget, then I'd be looking at probably the T8i, because once you get below the T8i, your photo and video capabilities really drop off, as you can see in this chart here. And then the next big jump that I'd be looking at for photo and video would be the Canon 90D. And you notice those are both DSLRs. Now, here's the thing. If you're looking at buying both of those cameras, what I do caution you on is think of your lenses. Think of a roadmap. If you really love cameras and you get addicted like I did, then in a few years you might be migrating to the RF system. Now, the good news is all the lenses you purchase for the T8i or the Canon 90D, the Canon's APS-C cameras, are adaptable to an RF camera. In fact, I'm using that same $99 adapter with my Canon R5 right now, and I'm shooting with the EF 50mm f1.2. I tried using the 18mm or 18 to 135mm USM lens. I attached it to this camera using the adapter, and I was stunned at how much better the images I was getting, because I have a better sensor, I have a full frame camera, I have better dynamic range, and I was able to actually capture better results. So you want to think of your roadmap. So while you can bring all your EF-S and EF lenses to the RF platform, you want to think of focal lengths. So for example, if you're doing portraits, and a lot of them, then a 50mm, for example, whether it be the 1.2, the 1.4, or the 1.8, when they come over to the full frame camera like any of the RF cameras right now, it's going to be different. So on an APS-C body, that 50mm turns out to be about 80mm. Now, the good news about 50mm and 80mm is they both produce really good results for portraits. You're within that 50 to 100mm, which is kind of seen as ideal for portraits. So you can do a good job. Now you do have to stand back quite a bit with an APS-C camera with a 50mm. But once you go over to that full frame camera, let's say in 3 years or 6 years or something like that, you're going to be stunned at how much better those lenses are. So yeah, the T8i is out there right now. So take a look, and yeah, I highly recommend it. I also put out this video here on the, and I looked at the 90D versus the T8i, and it's a capability analysis, so you might want to take a look at that as well. I really think both are great cameras, and you've got access to a huge lens library with them. 107 lenses for both the EF and EFS mounts. Paul says, I've seen new SD cards coming out that can be fast enough for 8K. How does this compare in price, speed, and heat to CF Express? Will it become an option in the long term, and will cameras need redesigning to support them? Well, you're probably talking about UHS-2 cards, and yes, you can record 8K videos to them, but you're looking at IPB. There's no way you're going to be able to record 8K RAW to these cards because they just don't have the speed to sustain that. If I remember correctly, 8K RAW on the Canon R5 is something like 2.9 gigabits a second, and UHS-2 cards simply can't handle that. But if you're recording in IPB, then yes, you can, but you need to look at this question holistically. So yes, can you put it to the card? Yes, you can. It's like saying, can you stick 15 people in a Volkswagen? Yes, you can. Is it comfortable? No. Could you ride down the street? Could you commute to work this way? No. A bus is a better vehicle for that. So while you can use SD cards for recording 8K video, I don't recommend it. You've got a long time to move them off the card because that's a huge amount of data. And if you're recording any significant amount of time, let's say you record 10 minutes, it's going to take a long time to move that off. A CF Express card is just so much faster. It's like saying, could you make a Mustang as fast as a Corvette? Yes, you certainly can, but you're going to spend a lot more than the cost of buying a base model Corvette because the Corvette is engineered from the very beginning to support that speed. And it's the same thing with cards. Is the CF Express card at its slowest speed is much faster at read. And a lot of these can sustain reads of 1,500 megabytes per second. So when recording a video like this that's 90 minutes long, I have files that are close to 400 gigabytes long. And that's long. That takes a long time to move off. And of course, there's other options to it, which I'm going to talk about in my Ninja 5 review. If you are recording sessions like I am right here, 90 minutes long, 400 gigabytes, that takes quite a bit of time to move off. And because it's really big and because I'll probably convert it to Apple ProRes, there's another 20 to 30 minutes. Not with a Ninja. I plug it into my computer. I just basically take the SSD out. I plug it into the SSD caddy, plug it in my computer, and in Final Cut, I just say, yeah, I want to bring this into the computer, but you know what? Leave the file where it is. Just bring in the metadata information. So it looks like I'm editing it when it's actually on the SSD instead of my computer. Now the audio, I do copy that over because it's using like USB 1. It's very, very slow. And I have no transfer speeds. Everything's fast. Exporting is faster because it's an Apple ProRes. I was looking at a good 6 hours to shoot and edit at the fastest possible time to get it uploaded. That was 6 hours. Last week, 90 minutes. I did it in 3 hours. So it's not whether SD cards can do it. Sure, you can do it, just like you can compile 15 people into a Volkswagen Bug. But the user experience is very good. CF Express cards are really good, and the price difference isn't that huge depending on what type of CF Express card you go with. You can go with the Pro grade, which is one of the fastest out there. Transfer speeds are fast, write speeds are fast. Or you can go with a Pro grade, an Angelbird 2 terabyte or 4 terabyte, giving you a huge amount of storage. The read speeds are about half, and the write speeds are more than fast enough for 12K, but the price is so much cheaper. You're looking at about, I think it's $899 US for a 2 terabyte card. I know it's not cheap, but that's what happens when you play at this level. Right now, that's the price of these cards, and I believe we're going to see more competition. From what I've read in tech news, we're going to see the prices of SSDs, we're going to see the prices of all sorts of NAND, flash memory come down. in the next month, and then another price cut in Q1. So we could see prices come down by as much as 30%. So that means CF Express cards, SD cards will come down in price, and SSDs. And I'm talking about SATA SSDs. M2 will also come down in price, but for your editing, all you really need is SATA 2. Joe Doc asks, when it comes for the next firmware update for the Canon R6, what will they improve? I don't know. And the reason I don't know is because Canon has actually come out and said that, well, they don't know. This was a couple of months ago when they talked about their roadmap for the Canon R5, and they talked about what was going to be in the next few firmware updates. They said with the R6, we've just gotten it out in the market, we don't have enough sales data back, so at this point we really aren't too sure what we're going to do to it. Now, I have an idea of what I would like to see, like with the R5, and I'm going to keep beating this dead horse until it is truly dead. Let's eliminate that 30-minute record limit. It is no longer there. It no longer needs to be there. The European legislative requirement expired in 2019, so it doesn't need to be there. The other thing I would like to see is, come on guys, bring back All-I. Now my thoughts are, All-I requires less processing because, well, it's just grabbing every file and putting it to the container, whereas IPB requires a lot of calculation, so perhaps the overheat in 4K 30 won't be as strict. Those are two things I would really like to see, and sure, there's a long list of things that I'm sure you would like to see. Let me know what you would like to see in the firmware update, but right now we don't have anything in rumors, and Canon certainly hasn't given us any hints. Harden Studios asks, could the R1 include a patent where Canon incorporates the EF to RF dual mount? I don't really think so. We've already got a $99 EF to RF adapter, and yes, it's not as good as being able to just screw everything right onto the mount itself, but as Canon is developing the R1, they've got a whole list of functional requirements that they want to put into the camera, and then they go ahead and they prioritize those. And the capability of being able to use your EF lenses with the R1, well, that's been met. Yes, people have to spend $99, and yes, people have to take it off and put it back on when they change lenses, but the capability's there. I think they'd probably spend that development time and resource time on more important capabilities. That's my opinion. What do you think? Do you think it's going to be there? I don't know. I haven't heard anything in rumors, and if I do hear anything, subscribe and you'll be the first to know. Another question for Joe Doc. Can the MacBook Pro 2020 edition edit C-Log H.265.422? Yes, it can, but there are a few caveats. First of all, I just want to clarify things for people who might be watching. If you're shooting C-Log, you're definitely shooting 10-bit. It's definitely going to be an H.265, okay? And it's definitely going to be 422, because that's what C-Log is. And it's the only way to get that on the Canon R5. So if you're looking for 10-bit, 422, H.265, turn on C-Log. It's the only way you're going to get it. I've got a 2015 MacBook Pro, and I have no problem editing it. But what I do first is I convert the files to Apple ProRes. If you take it in its native format, it is going to be a problem. And Apple recommends this whenever you bring in your video from your camera, whether it's the R5, the EOS R, a 90D, or a Sony a6100, Apple recommends converting it to Apple ProRes, and it makes a huge difference in performance. If you have a Ninja 5, well, you've already got the option to output in Apple ProRes 422, which is great. If not, then you do have to convert it, and there is a time element for that. But in terms of editing smooth video and not having to upgrade to another computer, yeah, you've got that. Now, it's still going to take longer to, of course, export. And you have the other option. If you don't want to spend the time to convert to Apple ProRes 422, then you can edit using proxies. And people have been doing that for a long time. While most computers today can easily handle full HD video without breaking a sweat, 5 years ago, people were complaining about editing in 1080p, that their computers just weren't fast enough. And 4K takes another significant jump, which is why I bought the iMac Pro last year, and I'm glad I did. So again, you can use proxies, or you can convert it to Apple ProRes. And if you don't do that and you edit right out of the camera, you bring it onto your computer and you start editing, you can still edit, but you'll probably drop a few frames. And depending on what you're editing, that won't be a problem. For many, many months, I edited the C-Log video coming out of the Canon R5 on my 2015 MacBook Pro, and it would stutter. And it would stutter pretty bad, but I didn't really care because it's a talking head. And and the audio didn't skip. So I would just listen to the audio and I would stop it when I wanted to put in an effect or a graphic, and it really didn't impact my work at all. But if you really want to save time overall, Apple ProRes 422 is the way to go, and Adobe Premiere can easily edit in that too, so it's not just for Apple computers. Dave asks, why did you start this channel? I'm going to be completely honest and blunt with you, Dave. I did it for several reasons. One is I was looking at getting a new camera, and I think at the time Canon had just announced the 90D, and I wasn't too happy with it. It didn't have all-eye, it didn't have 24 frames per second. I just thought, oh, this looked like a perfect camera for me. It wasn't going to cost me a whole lot more. And I just felt, and I also felt I was ready for full frame. So I thought, well, if I go to full frame, it's going to cost me a lot more. The Canadian dollar's down over the past couple of years. So, you know, whatever you see in US dollars, I have to pay 30% or 32% more. That's a big kick in the teeth on top of a 13% sales tax. Yeah, that's pretty good, right? So what I thought was, well, if I started a YouTube channel and maybe made $200 US a month, then that can go towards my next camera, and that'll help reduce the cost, and my wife will be pretty happy with that too. But the main reasons why I started the channel too is I thought, well, it's October, I can't really go out and play in the snow because there is no snow, it's too cold, it's dark early, there's not a lot to do this time of year, and I was binge watching YouTube and Netflix. And I've been watching a couple of YouTube channels. I really like DP Review, Chris and Jordan. They kind of aspire to be I kind of aspire to be what they are. I mean, if I could describe ideally what my channel would look like, it'd be like what they do. I like what Jordan does with the video side. I more relate to Jordan because he's on the video side. And I also like what Chris does in the sense of humor, and I like what they do. I like what Tony Northrup does with some of his in-depth reviews of things like quad Bayer sensors, why it matters, or quad Bayer filters, sorry. I like some of the humor that Fro does. I like what Gregg does. And I kind of borrowed from all of them. And one day I was sitting down, I was watching a Camera Conspiracies video. This is back when he only had about 50,000 subscribers. And I was watching. I thought, how hard can this be? And I was watching his video, and Casey doesn't have a lot of complicated sets, and when he wants to bring in vibrant colors and rich backgrounds, he goes outside and he vlogs, and I thought, how hard can this be? So I got off my couch, I brought my camera upstairs, and I recorded my first video, and it's this one here. If you'd like a laugh, watch it. It's funny. And that brings apart the next thing I wanted to do. I wanted to fill my time with something, because I love to learn. And I want to improve my skills when it comes to filmmaking and photography. Now, after you watch that video, you watch this video, and you can see a huge improvement that I've made. My audio's a lot better. The set is better. Now, it's not great, but the focus is on me and whatever I have on my desk here, and it's a simple black background, so that keeps the cost down, although I am planning on upgrading this a little bit in the near future. I've got lots of lighting around me. I spent couple of months trying to get the lighting right, using different types of lights, and all this stuff is in the description down below. I also use a teleprompter, and right now I'm not using the teleprompter, but I did use it for the intro, and I'm going to use it for the outro. It just simplifies life a whole lot more. And now I'm using a Ninja 5 recorder. So that was the second reason. And the third reason, to make friends. I've got a 6-year-old son. I had a 5-year-old son back then. And slowly over those years, I kind of lost touch with a lot of friends because I couldn't really go anywhere. I couldn't really do anything. They had families. And then every now and then it's a phone call. And the channel gives me a way to engage and make friends online. Many of you I've made friends with. Some of you I even have conversations with on the phone. And others we even get together to do videos together. So it's a great way to engage. It's great for mental health. And here I am just over a year later. Thanks to all your support, I've got a Canon R5 that didn't come out of my pocket, and that's huge. And I really enjoy the relationships, the friendships, the comments, and I've learned an awful lot. So, Dave, that's why I started the channel. Prince asks, what do you think about the Panasonic camera? Are they going to give 8K video options in an upcoming camera? Because I think Panasonic is the first who declared 8K video when the Panasonic S1 was released. Yeah, no, Panasonic doesn't have 8K. They didn't declare it with the S1H. They came out with 6K video. Now, did somebody mention 8K? Perhaps, but they have not officially come out and said that they're going to be doing 8K in any upcoming camera. And I really think right now Panasonic's got a bigger problem. In terms of worldwide sales, they're in the basement with other. So when you see these worldwide sales report, you don't see Panasonic. They're below Olympus. They're below Fuji. They're in the basement with other. And that means that worldwide, all their cameras, their hybrid mirrorless cameras, they're probably selling somewhere under 200,000 units a year. So 8K isn't their problem. I really think a root of the problem is their autofocus. I hear a lot of people saying, well, pros don't need autofocus. Well, no. If you're a professional, then you know how to use your camera. You know when to use automatic features and when not to use automatic features. These same arguments went back when we had color. Pros don't use color. Pros don't use autofocus. Pros don't use digital cameras. Well, today, pros use digital cameras. Pros use color. Like I said, the pros know when to use what. And autofocus is a useful tool, but not in every scenario and not with every camera. And if you're looking at buying a camera, you're looking at the overall capabilities. I might not need autofocus now, good, reliable autofocus, but might I need it later? And if you do, there are a lot of great cameras out there that provide it. So I go with the S1. Now, that being said, I will state again, as I've stated in all my videos, that Panasonic makes really good cameras. In fact, I would say they're at the top. The only thing holding them back is their lack of phase detect autofocus, holding on to contrast detect, and I think that's the biggest problem. So 8K, no, I think it would be a gimmick for them. They are in the midst of a strategic transformation. Their focus, as they said, is on video, and what that means I really don't know, because they've been producing really good cameras with really good video capabilities. The GH5 today is still an excellent camera. The S1, the S1R, the S1H, and the S5, these are all great cameras. And it's not just me. Look at Gerald Undone when he had the recent S5. He was saying how great the camera is, but once again, autofocus is unreliable and untrustworthy for video. And that's an issue. Sure, it's great if you're doing a video like this where your talent isn't moving. But if you're out and about and your talent's moving around, well, you can't use that you can't use video for that. Or you can't shoot video with that camera. So it's not good for run and gun. It's not good for fun and gun. Well, that's a pretty big capability gap, and that's what the market's telling Panasonic. So hopefully, phase detect autofocus comes in, or something else, that brings them back to the top, because I do not want to see Panasonic leave the marketplace. They produce really good cameras. They've got some great engineering. Rosna asks, how did you arrive at $1,200 for the Ninja 5? I must apologize. It's not $1,200. It's actually $1,199. So how I arrived at that price was, well, there's just really two prices. So if you want to buy the Ninja 5, you can buy it for $599, which is what everybody's talking about. Or you can buy it at $1199. So what's the difference? Well, $599, you get the Ninja 5, and that's it. So if you're starting out and you don't have a lot of studio equipment, you're going to need to buy some batteries. You're going to need to buy an SSD caddy, and you're going to need to buy storage. And even if you're a professional, you probably don't have tons of storage lying around, and you're probably always needing more storage. So for $11.99, it's a kit package. You get two batteries. The big batteries, do I have? No, I'd have to get up and walk around. They're over there, but they're the big batteries where you can easily record an hour of video. You get a charger. You get an SSD caddy. It's not the best one, but you get an SSD caddy, and you get a 1 terabyte card. So that's the difference in price. And for most ordinary filmmakers looking at getting started, you're probably going to need the package. One battery isn't going to be enough. I would almost say you need 3 batteries. But for studio work, I just simply use the adapter, the electrical adapter. Words speak me not. Plug it into the back, and then that way, that's one thing I'm not worrying about. So now I don't have to worry about record time, don't have to worry about overheat, and I don't have to worry about battery levels in either the R5 or the Ninja. And a neat thing about the R5 battery life, when using the Ninja, my battery life goes up to about 3 hours now, about 2 hours and 50 minutes. When I recorded my 90-minute session last week, I was using a brand new Canon LP E6N battery, and would you believe it? Battery life after shooting was down to 49 minutes. So that was a 90-minute video, and of course there was time playing around, setting it up and positioning everything. So yeah, long story short to how I came up with the $1,200. Randall asks, are you second-guessing on getting the Sony a7S III now since you have the Atmos Ninja 5 working great with your R5 for video editing? No, yes, no, yes, no. Well, sort of. So here's the thing. The R5 is capable in different ways than the R5, so the Ninja 5 doesn't change that. I was never looking at the Ninja 5 to eliminate the record limits or the overheat limits. The real benefit, Randall, to the Ninja 5 is just on the huge amount of time that it saves. In some of my videos, I cut the amount of editing or I cut my workflow down in half. Because on a video like this, the files are huge. I edit right off the SSD. There's no delay. I'm editing on ProRes 422. I don't need to convert the files. And also, my export times are a whole lot less. So that's a huge win. But I'm an ordinary filmmaker. I'm not a rich guy. I don't have a ton of money coming into the channel. This is what I've made over the last couple of months, and you can see most of that just covers the cost of the R5. I'm making less in recent months, and while I was planning on buying the a7S III and I still want to do it, it doesn't give me any additional capabilities. It isn't going to get me that many more views, but when I look at getting something like the Canon 800mm, yeah, the 800mm and the 2x extender, it gives me additional capabilities, and I can look at getting the Ninja 5 or the 800mm, and that's kind of what I'm going to look at doing. Yes, I'm going to spend a lot more time on things, but a lot of my Q&A videos, what I simply do is, once I'm finished editing them, I copy them over to the computer, I go off and do other stuff in the house, I convert to ProRes or I don't, and if I convert to ProRes again, I go off and do other things. So I usually shoot late at night, I set that stuff up, I go to bed, I watch a movie, and I come down and check on it, shut down the machine. So it's kludgy, but you know, there's a certain dollar and value sense that I still have to worry about this channel. It's like any business. I just can't go out and buy everything I want. I really do want the Ninja 5. I really do wish I could keep it, but this review, I was lent the Ninja 5 for about 3 to 4 weeks, but I don't get to keep it. It's really sad because, and I'm kind of letting the camera out of the bag with the review video, but just eye-opening how much time you can save. Just terrific. Di asks, you mentioned that you were having a problem with the exposure while recording C-Log on the R5. Is that a firmware or hardware issue, and can it be fixed in the future? It's not while recording C-Log, it's while recording any video on the R5. And I'll explain why this happens. When you're recording video on the R5, and in manual mode, so this is where you have a ton of settings. You can change a lot in manual mode, but the one thing you cannot change is how the R5 meters video. Guess which metering mode they default to for video? Yeah, evaluative. And this will explain, if you go back and watch my Q&A videos, why things started to go a little crazy. So when I was shooting outside, everything would look good, but if the brightness of the sun increased by more than about 15%, it would say, okay, you know what, there's enough brightness there, it would adjust the exposure, and guess what? I look underexposed, I look terrible. So when you're shooting event-type videos or videos like this where your subject isn't moving, but your lighting situation changes, and I'm not talking about bright sunlight, you can go from thick clouds to light clouds, and it can really just mess up your video. I really wish Canon would fix this. They could very easily do it by giving us a manual option in manual mode where we could set the metering for video from evaluative to spot. Spot would solve a lot of my problems. I can easily see it on the photo mode when I had the same problem. Oh, I'm in evaluative. Okay, change it over to spot, take my picture. Yeah, the background's blown out. Of course, something's got to give, but the photo looks great. And I don't have that creative ability with the R5. So yeah, Canon could address it in a firmware update, but no one's talking about it. No one's mentioning it. And I didn't right away too, because I spent months trying to figure out what was wrong, optimize the settings of the camera, which I did. I tried different things, but at the end of the day, not being able to choose metering, well, we just work around it. You try to put your camera in a position and your subject in a position where things aren't going to change too much. But it's very, very difficult. So that's why I brought these Q&A videos, well, and it's getting cold outside, inside, is so I don't have to worry about that. Now, if you're behind the camera and shooting, you're doing run and gun stuff, it's not really a problem because you can see everything as you're shooting. You can see if you're starting to overexpose, and if there's a huge difference between the shadows and the highlights, well, the very first thing you do is turn on C-Log. Turn on C-Log. It's going to give you more flexibility in post. And then you can also see, well, look, I can see what's happening. Now, maybe this is creative and I can work with that, or I just shift my position and I no longer have to worry about that. But for any event work or outdoor type studio stuff where you're doing interviews and the subject isn't moving for a certain period of time, yeah, it's a big issue. And I'm sad to say I don't think they're going to fix it in a firmware update, not unless people start raising a little bit of hell over this, and I don't think that's going to happen, Day. Joshua asks, hi Simon, what ND filters would you recommend for the R5? Mainly for Canon Prime or Zoom RF lenses. Well, Joshua, I'm primarily a video shooter, and this is what I went with. I went with Keynote. This is what they are here. I really like them. I've got 3 of them. 2 of them are 77s, and if you've been watching my videos for a long time, you'll know that I bashed my lens, kind of dropped the R5, and luckily the only thing I damaged was the ND filter, which is really, really good news. This is what they look like. The reason I like these is, where is it here? There's a little notch, and they have these little, let me see if I can get it out here. You guys might want to skip ahead to other chapters if you find this part a little boring. Without glasses, let's see if I can get this in there. It's kind of like one of those old captain's wheels. So if you're always getting your fingers on the lens, what this does is it goes around the outside so you can easily adjust it using this. And of course, the really great thing too is when you're actually shooting, you can actually see where you need to put your hands to move it around. Believe it or not, you don't have this on there. You're kind of looking, where's the mark, right? So you see a little mark here and you want to line it up, because you will get X's, you will get some weird artifacts, but only if you overextend it. So on the max, if you go past the maximum amount, you will create an X, and that's because it's in an area where you're not supposed to be. On the minimum side, though, I didn't see that. But I really like the Kinkos. Now, if you have a ton of glass, this can get very expensive. One of these cost me about 120 US dollars, and I bought 2 of them. If you've got 5 lenses or 6 lenses, it can get very expensive. There are other options. You could buy Canon's adapter, and it sits between the body and the lens. But there's an issue there too. I currently have the EF 50mm 1.2 on the camera right now. If I was using Canon's adapter, well, I would still have to buy one of these, because once you put that EF to RF adapter on the camera, there's no room for the filters because it takes up that critical space. You can have one or the other. You can't have both, or it changes the optics completely, and yeah, you're not even going to be able to do that. So these are really good, and I think they're price competitive. There are other lenses out there by famous people, and you're paying a bit of a markup. But the Kinkos, I've been using them since about August, and they produce really terrific results. I was looking at getting a different brand, and for the life of me, I can't remember it. But when I went to Downtown Camera, Patrick said, well, you might want to consider these, because he says, you know, what happens with a lot of filters is you end up putting your fingerprints on the glass, and that's what's really nice about this. But the one thing about this, though, if you put it in your camera bag, you want to take it off because you don't want to risk damaging anything. So yeah, those are the ND filters that I use, the variable ND filters. Now, I do use other ND filters, and these are just, whenever I buy a lens, I buy an ND filter and I put it on, and it helps protect. That same situation where I damaged, this is the one where I damaged because the other one's on the lens. I was lucky. It cost me $200 Canadian. My lens is fine, and my R5 is fine, and that's huge. If I didn't have that ND filter on there, then the lens would be damaged, and I'm out $1,100 US, and that's not a good thing. But again, if you're starting out, one thing you need to be careful with, if you have that UV zero and you're shooting photography or video, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of lights, a lot of candles, like Christmas trees. What you will start to do is you will get these weird artifacts. Now, I was shooting this scene in, it was Halloween. We weren't doing trick-or-treating outside because of COVID. So we were filming in the backyard, and I basically did a twisted Easter egg hunt. I put a fog machine up, and what you'll notice is there's this little kind of blue UFO or unidentified flying object here, and it's not. It's what's happened is the light is bouncing off the lens, hitting the UV zero filter and coming back and creating that artifact. And I should have taken it off. I forgot, but you know, that's what happens if you use the UV filter. Now, shooting outside in regular daylight, not a problem. But if you're shooting inside, you're shooting where there's a lot of candles, or a perfect example is Christmas tree lights, you're going to want to take that UV zero filter off. And what am I using for the UV zero filters? Let's see. Let's put my glasses on. B&W. So I'm using B&W as my UV zero filter. Now I can't get this on. Where's the red mark? Here we go. So yeah, let's just get this all the way over here, out of the way. And but yeah, don't need those on anymore. A really good question, Joshua. John says, Canon and Sony are both expected to launch pro sports action bodies in time for the Olympics. Is there a pro Nikon Z body coming out to replace the D5 and D6 as Nikon's flagship mirrorless camera? They are coming out with a new flagship camera, and it's going to be a flagship mirrorless camera. They're not replacing the D6. As long as they keep selling the D6, they're going to keep making it. Keep in mind that D6 is a DSLR, and there's a lot of people that prefer DSLRs. They want to stick with DSLRs. Not going to get into reasons why. That's been done to death, and I actually produced a video right here about the difference between DSLRs and mirrorless, and I actually get away from why one is better than the other. I use Canon as an example, and I compare the different cameras that Canon has in their current inventory and compare the different photos and video specs. And I have this great chart where I look at the different cameras and I color code them, whether they're mirrorless or DSLRs, their price range, and their capabilities. And I really recommend watching that. So let's get back to their new flagship camera. I don't know what it's going to be called. It's going to be called either the Z8 or the Z9, and it's probably going to be announced in January. Now, also announced in January, we're expecting Canon to announce their new flagship camera. We got the 1DX Mark III in January, or the announcement in January, and now rumors are that Canon's going to be announcing the R1, their new flagship mirrorless camera, not to replace the 1DX. They're going to keep selling the 1DX, but it's going to be a mirrorless version of that, and it's going to be an upgrade over the 1DX. But that's not all. Sony is also supposed to be announcing in January the A9 Mark III. Now, we don't know too much about this, but again, it's supposed to be a flagship camera. Rumors are saying anything from being a step above the A9 to it's going to be just an A9 Mark III. Initially, there was going to be another model above it. Sony rumors are really tough. This has got nothing to do with how good or great or poor Sony rumors is. It's just that Sony does a really incredible job of holding on to information and not letting things leak out, which is sad. I produce a lot more news on Sony if they would just go ahead and leak a little bit more. So that camera is supposed to have 8K video, but in terms of photo and video specifications outside of that, really not much. In terms of how 8K video is going to be, not much. But it's going to be a pro body. It's going to be very similar in size to the D6 and the 1DX Mark III. Divil asks, what's your favorite camera? And for which unannounced camera are you excited about? Well, Divil, right now my favorite camera is the R5 because it has really improved my game. I'm excited by using it. Like any favorite camera, there are issues like the metering in video, but I was just watching a family video that I created. It's basically a montage of the year, watching my son grow up, watching my family's experiences. It's 90 minutes long, and it started in December of last year, and it runs up to November of this year. So I'm just getting ready to finalize that, and I was watching it, and the quality of the work that I've done is so much better towards the end of the year than at the beginning, simply because I've learned an awful lot, and the camera has a lot of capabilities. I'm still learning how to use the R5. I have so much more I have to learn about it, and I'm really excited about that. But in terms of what new cameras are coming out, well, I'm really excited by Panasonic and what they're going to do with their strategic transformation. I think this is a company with a huge amount of untapped potential. Fix the autofocus, and they're going to launch up into the top 3. but I'm also excited by the Canon R1. This is going to be an upgrade over the 1DX, which is already an amazing camera. So I'm looking to see what they're going to do in terms of frame rates. Are they going to do something like 30 frames per second, 60 frames per second, 120 frames per second, and grab the stills out of video and do something like that? They're going to be using computational power. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to be different in this camera, so I'm really eagerly awaiting that. I'm also looking forward to seeing what Nikon's doing with their new flagship camera, the Z8, Z9. That's going to be exciting too, and of course the Sony A9. I talk mostly Canon, and the reason for that is, one, Canon has 45% market share, so there's more news. And Canon stuff leaks like a colander. There's just information coming out all the time. Am I biased to Canon? Yeah, probably, because I have a lot of Canon stuff. I know more about Canon stuff, but that doesn't mean I don't appreciate Sony and what they've done with the A7S III. It's a terrific camera. I want to have one here. I want to try it out. I want to see how they deal with metering in video. I'm really excited to see how that works. But cameras to me are like computers. There's so much great stuff out there, but there's only so much I can learn. And one of the reasons I settled on Canon was not because I thought they were the best company at all. It wasn't. Because way back when, decades ago, I was looking at getting into a camera, I asked my brother, who was a photographer, and I said, hey, I'm looking at getting a camera. What do you think I should get? And he said, go ahead and get this. And it was a Canon, so that's why I bought it, based on what somebody had told me. And once once you're in an ecosystem, I've got this lens, I've got this lens, I've got the lens on there. Every new lens I purchase takes me deeper into the Canon ecosystem. And that's okay as long as the company keeps producing, as long as the company keeps staying an ongoing concern. And even if Canon stopped producing lenses tomorrow, there's such a huge inventory that I'm covered. So yeah, I'm with Canon right now. I really like the R5, but I'm really excited to see what those other companies are coming out with. And I'm curious to see what Olympus is up to too, because JIT, I love what they're doing. They're getting aggressive. They're discounting some of the cameras already, getting interest in the market at the right time of year to bring in extra funds. And they're really going to start producing some high-end, high-quality MFT cameras. And I think that's going to be, I think there's a lot of potential there. They're not in trouble like Panasonic is, but worldwide sales, they're not very big. So if they can come out with some really great professional level MFT cameras that produce really good results, I think we could see some increases in their market share in the coming years. Our last question is from Sarub. What do you think about Black Friday? What will be the effect on camera prices? And what do you think about shopping online? Well, the last couple of years, all I've done is shop online. Lego, camera gear, electronics. There's no reason to go to the store. Even my local stores, I will shop online. And for those that don't do delivery, I will do a pickup. I'll order everything online. They go grab it. They call me, and then I just go in and pick it up at a special desk. So there's that. There's really two events you want to be watching out for: Black Friday and December. We're already seeing discounts. Olympus, if you're looking for an Olympus, buy now. Those things are cut in half to some degree. Nikon and I believe Sony is offering some discounts too, but they're not huge discounts. We're looking at $50 if you buy a kit package or something like that. But come Black Friday, you're going to be seeing sales from everybody. Everyone's on the bandwagon now. Canon, Sony, Olympus, Panasonic, they're all going to have discounts. I'm personally looking for SSDs. I've got a 2 terabyte right now, and that montage video that I talked about, it's 1.1 terabytes. Yeah, I barely have enough room to edit videos for my channel, so I need a new SD card, or sorry, not a new SD card, I need a new SSD drive, and I'm going to get the 4 terabyte, and they're way overpriced right now. They're about 30%. Well, actually, the 4 terabytes aren't that much more expensive than last year. They're cheaper, but the 2 terabytes and the 1 terabytes, not too happy with the prices. We are supposed to be getting a 10 to 15% discount over the next couple of months. And then in Q1 of 2021, another 15% discount in SSDs. So factor that into your purchasing. If you can hold out, hold out. Keep an eye on Black Friday. Amazon quite often will have discounts as we tick over into midnight Eastern time. So keep an eye on that. If you're on the Pacific Coast, then check out at 9 o'clock and you'll see some discounts. So we already saw a few over the last few weeks where they knock off $50, but I still think they're overpriced. And of course, if you don't see anything you like on Black Friday, well, then wait till December. Canon, for example, is notorious for having huge discounts in December. I've seen as much as $500 off, $300 off, $800 off, depending on the lenses. I'm really hoping to see a discount on the 800mm and the 2x extender. Well, I think the 800mm is a good deal even at its regular price. The 2x extender, that's overpriced. So I'm looking to see some discounts there. But that's pretty well it for this week. Again, guys, thank you so much for submitting your questions, for engaging in my channel. It means an awful lot to me. You may have noticed that this week I haven't produced as many videos, and there's several reasons for that. One, there isn't a whole lot of news. I'm not sure what that is. I don't know if that's because the US election coverage is taking up a lot of the news cycles and companies aren't planning on releasing any information because they're not going to get... They're competing with a huge news machine about one particular subject. So there's that, and of course you've got COVID, so if you're going to be releasing camera information, you probably want to wait for the news cycle to die down a little bit. But also, things are really picking up at work, and by the time I get to the end of my workday, I'm a little tired, and what I've decided to do is, if I am exhausted, I'm going to take a break. I'm not going to produce a video unless, of course, it's really big news. And yesterday I could have produced a video. I talked about the RF 50mm 1.8 and the 70-200 as rumors that it was going to be coming out soon, and then the very next day they came out, but there really wasn't anything new in the news that differentiated from the rumor. So I thought, I'm taking the night off. And so that's why I'm prioritizing my health, I'm prioritizing my family. That will always come first. But I still managed to get out about 3 or 4 videos. And the one thing I also want to prioritize for this channel is this weekly Q&A video, because it's a time to engage you and to answer your questions, and I really would love to be able to do this live someday, but it's not always easy. Sometimes there's a lot of noise from the family upstairs, and so when I do a pre-record, if there's interruptions, I can edit those out. I do want to bring up one last thing, though. Mehdi Hapalouche produced a video just a few days ago, or a week ago, I think it is now. He's moving off the R5 again. He's switching to Sony and the A7S III. I think the A7S III is a great camera, and he mentioned many different reasons, and one of them was editing. And I've been asked about this before, editing files off the R5. And yeah, it does take a bit of work. And he talked about, well, I can convert these files, transcode them, and what he means is convert them to Apple ProRes 422 or some other video format. But that does take time, and he could use a Ninja, that is true, but for some of your run and gun stuff that he does, you don't want extra gear. Why do I want to do that? It doesn't fit the scenario as well, and so with the A7S III, he doesn't have that issue. And it's a good point, and that's why when you're looking at cameras, you really do have to carefully look at all the capabilities you're looking for in a camera and think down the road, think in the different scenarios you're going to be using them. So these are the capabilities I want in a camera. Now these are my shooting scenarios. And I agree with him. Now, I shoot very similar to Maddie. I shoot a lot of studio work, but I shoot a lot of outdoor work. But for me, most of my outdoor work is fun and gun stuff, family stuff. So I'm shooting clips. I'm not shooting huge segments. So I understand his decision, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I understand his justification. It's well thought out. Now, he spends about 10 or 15 minutes talking about other things, and he's got some great drone footage. I don't know where he is. It's probably up in Muskoka or some area, because that's not Lake Simcoe. It's not anywhere near here. And he lives in and around York region, the Newmarket area. Or sorry, he films in that area. So I was just trying to figure out where that is. So some great shots. He loses his drone, and then he gets into talking about it. And if the same question's asked to me, not a problem for me. Yes, a lot of times my computer, the iMac Pro, is more than fast enough. It will drop some frames, but the type of editing I'm doing, I listen to the audio, and if it skips a little bit, I don't care. I actually edit at 2x speed because it takes a lot of time. So I'm going through and the audio's fine. I don't really have any problems with it. And if it does stutter really bad, I convert to ProRes, and that's where the Ninja comes in. So eventually I probably am going to get the Ninja for studio work, but for outdoor run and gun stuff, there's no great urgency. If I don't take my fun and gun stuff and bring it into the computer and edit it within a couple of weeks, no one's going to yell at me. My son might say, Daddy, did you produce the film yet? And I'll say no, and then I'll probably go down to the basement and I'll do that. And with that stuff, I always convert to Apple ProRes, because my films are usually 90 minutes long. And the problem with being 90 minutes long, I learned this last year, especially dealing with a lot of big files. If it's 90 minutes long, the computer will come to a crawl if I don't use ProRes 422. And I called Apple support, and guess what Apple said? Convert to Apple ProRes. You have any performance issues with Final Cut on a Mac? Apple's going to say, convert to ProRes. If you're using Adobe Premiere, convert your footage to Apple ProRes. It's just going to be better. But that's it for now. Thanks so much for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. Don't forget to subscribe for your chance to win the Singolav S6e and the M3 shotgun microphones. I'll be awarding these two prizes to one lucky viewer once the channel reaches 20,000 subscribers. And after that, I'll be offering up a different and more expensive prize every 10,000 subscribers until the channel reaches 100,000 subscribers, at which point I'll be awarding a brand new Canon EOS R5 full-frame mirrorless camera to one lucky viewer. And on that bombshell, thanks for watching The Ordinary Filmmaker. We'll see you again soon.